That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, let's dive into our first video this offseason. Please go down there, drop a like on this video, and subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. We are going to be talking about our running back rankings for 2022. These are not dynasty rankings. Y'all know I talk dynasty fantasy football every single day on our dynasty channel. But instead, this is going to be for our best ball formats that we are drafting this offseason. I mean, if you have not had the chance to hop into a draft with us on the live stream, maybe you've been drafting just throughout the day with some random people online hopping into those public leagues. Hopefully this video will be able to help you specifically at the very top of your draft. And if you're wondering, oh my God, Mason, we're really talking about this right now, how are you drafting teams? You can go to Underdog Fantasy, and on Underdog Fantasy, they have best ball drafts where you're not going to have to submit your starting lineup during the season. That's automatically done for you at the end of every single week. There is no waiver wire. So I'm going to be drafting over 200 real money teams this offseason, A, to have a crap ton of fun, B, to hopefully yet again make some money, and C, most importantly, to prepare us for the beginning of the fantasy football season. One last thing I forgot to tell y'all, if you have not signed up for Underdog Fantasy yet and you go sign up and use promo code FLOCK when you make at least a $10 deposit, they will match your deposit dollar for dollar up to $100. You will also get access to our premium content over there on Locals. That's extra live streams every single week. That's, a full list of our dynasty rankings and our rankings for these best ball formats as well. Just make sure you sign up for Underdog Fantasy. Use promo code FLOCK. You can find the link in the description of this video if you want access to all those great things. But that should be it. Let's go through. Let's dive into this. Lead it off with everybody's running back one. I don't need to talk about this too much. We have Jonathan Taylor here. Now, Jonathan Taylor, clearly the running back one last year. I think most people would make the argument that Matt Ryan is going to be an upgrade over Carson Wentz this upcoming season. Now, I will say, I think some people have been overstating the upgrade that Matt Ryan is to Carson Wentz. I would like to highlight that I believe Matt Ryan's cap hit is going to be less than Carson Wentz's was this season. And you had 2 third-round picks traded for Carson Wentz, where the Colts only had to send 1 for Matt Ryan. Maybe you can talk about the fact that the Colts maybe just timed this quarterback market perfectly this offseason. What's probably the more realistic situation is Matt Ryan at 36, 37 years old just simply is not close to the same quarterback that he was previously, and the NFL is not going to value him as you probably should have 3 to 4 years ago. So please don't go out there and pull up, Matt Ryan and Devontae Freeman and look at the targets Matt Ryan was getting Devontae Freeman back in 2016, 2015, because to be completely honest, it doesn't really matter anymore. That was so long ago. Matt Ryan, has completely changed as a quarterback. He has definitely regressed, but we know with those quarterbacks, as they get older, you see those players continue to lower their average depth of target and particularly possibly check the ball down to the running back out of the backfield slightly more. And I know that's a long-winded explanation on how Matt Ryan could potentially affect Jonathan Taylor. In reality, it doesn't really matter who his quarterback is because Jonathan Taylor's coming off a season where he was the running back one in fantasy on a per-game basis if you exclude Derrick Henry, as Derrick Henry did not play enough games. And if you look at Jonathan Taylor, he's going into his age 23 season. He was an elite level prospect coming out of Wisconsin. I'm sure that y'all have been listening to my own prospect evaluation on our Dynasty channel with a lot of these rookies. And if I just want to pull up, that same process we have with Jonathan Taylor here to illustrate the elite prospect he was. He has a BMI of 32.4, indicating he's a running back that can handle a full workload, combined with the fact he's going over 2,000 yards every single year at Wisconsin. He ran a 4.39, the same speed as Breece Hall. Keep in mind, we'll talk about Breece Hall hopefully later on in this video. He actually had a fine college target share. Over 10% of the targets on a per game basis in that Wisconsin offense went towards Jonathan Taylor, indicating that he can catch the ball. He got the draft capital. He checked every single box. But more importantly, last year he came out, had almost 20 carries a game, had over 100 rushing yards a game, and wasn't a complete dud as a receiver. This is what you like to see. He goes out there, gets 3 targets a game. He gets over 21 receiving yards. That's massive. If we just think about what that means from a fantasy football standpoint compared to someone like Derrick Henry on a points per reception basis, here with Jonathan Taylor, he's going out there and possibly adding an extra 5 to 6 points through the air, which is nothing close to our next running back. But still, if you're comparing him to someone like Derrick Henry, who's going to give you a complete 0 at that spot, you really like to see this with Jonathan Taylor. He was the running back 1 last year, like 23 points per game. But let's go to a player last year that if you drafted him, you lost your league. I mean, there's probably a 0.01% chance that if you had the first overall selection and you drafted McCaffrey, you won. And we can say the same thing in 2020 as well. Christian McCaffrey has been a player that in back-to-back seasons, he has lost your league for you. And I would love to know your opinion. And if we go over to Underdog Fantasy Drafts at this moment, Christian McCaffrey is the consensus second running back off the board. I mean, if y'all remember us drafting these teams on live streams earlier this offseason, we were taking Christian McCaffrey at the end of the first round. Everybody was making fun of me. And now if you are trying to get Christian McCaffrey behind any other running back not named Jonathan Taylor, it's impossible. And let me dive into exactly why. And first, I need to address the injuries because they are definitely a concern. If the injuries to Christian McCaffrey were not a concern, he would still be the running back 1 and it would not even be close. But you have to account for these. I am always the person that says, outside of a player like Will Fuller, it is almost impossible to label a player in fantasy football as an injury-prone option based on how football is a random, small sample game. And if you're looking at 2 to 3 injuries, what does that tell us much? Not really. But when you have this trend here with Christian McCaffrey, it is definitely concerning. It started in 2020 where he was relatively healthy up until that 2020 season. He starts off with a high ankle sprain, misses 6 weeks, makes it back, injures his shoulder, and misses a month, and then finally makes it back from that shoulder injury and is out with the glute strain for the rest of the season. Now, what I would like to point out with these injuries is there's really no connection between any of these. I mean, you have the high ankle sprain, then a shoulder injury, and then, over a month after he's recovered from that high ankle sprain, then you're getting the glute strain. So I wasn't too concerned with Christian McCaffrey this past offseason. Clearly that proved to be the incorrect decision. I was drafting Christian McCaffrey with the first overall selection. And if I got that first overall selection on Underdog Fantasy in one of those live streams, I was jumping up and down, dancing for y'all on the camera. I was so excited to grab McCaffrey. But now we're starting to see this trend because in 2021, you have the hamstring strain, which, you can see directly tied with the glute strain from the previous season. And also in 2021, he has another ankle sprain, which ends up shutting him down. So yes, they are real concerns. You have to bake that in to McCaffrey's evaluation, and that's why he's not our running back 1. But why I am willing to bite the bullet and draft Christian McCaffrey at that running back 2 spot is because the elite ceiling that you have, the last fully healthy season we have had from Christian McCaffrey, he put up one of the all-time fantasy football seasons. We have seen nothing close to this. That year he had 18 carries a game, almost 9 targets a game. He went over 1,000 rushing yards and 1,000 receiving yards. He had 19 total touchdowns through 16 games, which y'all know usually I'd say, oh, maybe that's not sustainable. That's going to come down a bit. No, with this kind of volume, it 100% is sustainable. If anything, I would expect that number to be up a bit if you're looking at the actual touchdown rate on a per touch basis. He averaged 29.9 points per game. So essentially, McCaffrey went out there and averaged 30 points per game. Y'all know Jonathan Taylor was the league-winning running back last year. Jonathan Taylor was the key for you to bring down your championship at the running back position. Jonathan Taylor last year averaged 23 points per game. He averaged about 75% of McCaffrey's production. This shows that McCaffrey, when he is healthy, is truly in his own league and is not close with anybody else. I mean, if we go back since 2015, the only other running backs that have been able to go over 25 points per game, you have Le'Veon Bell with 26 in 2016, David Johnson with 26 that same season, 2017, Todd Gurley with 25, 2018, Todd Gurley with 26, and in 2020, you had Alvin Kamara with 25. We're talking about 30 points per game here for McCaffrey. If you hit on a healthy Christian McCaffrey, you win your fantasy league. And if we do some quick math and realize, okay, well, there are 12 teams in a league, there's only one winner, so you have about, 8% chance of winning your league? Is there a greater than 8% chance McCaffrey stays healthy? Yeah, definitely. Now, you only need that number, in my opinion, to get up to about 60, 70% for McCaffrey to be a smash pick. I'm not going to take him ahead of Taylor because Taylor's younger. I mean, I would imagine that he definitely has a higher chance of staying healthy this upcoming season, but I'm fine taking McCaffrey at pick 2. Now, pick 3 is where we see a pretty big fall off. The reason I'm not going to have Austin Ekeler over Christian McCaffrey is I do think you are going to get some reversion to the mean with his touchdowns in particular. Because if you're looking at Austin Ekeler, he was the running back 3 last year. Of course, you were ecstatic if you had Ekeler. But what do we always like to look at? And that's going to carry over season to season. Volume, volume, volume. We want to see the role in the offense and the usage that he is receiving. And here with Austin Ekeler, he goes out there, 12.8 carries per game, 5.8 targets per game. Let's compare that to what you had with Christian McCaffrey in 2019. With Christian McCaffrey, you had pretty much 18-9 compared to 12-5 here, or 13-6 if you want to round up for Ekeler. Now, of course, Ekeler was fantastic, but the majority of this was based on the fact that he had 20 touchdowns through 16 games. And I will say, this Los Angeles Chargers offense is going to be fantastic going forward. I mean, this is a team that has Justin Herbert on that rookie deal, so they're able to go out there and put, one of the most well-rounded rosters to support Justin Herbert and Austin Ekeler to potentially be a top 3 offense in the NFL yet again. Now, with Ekeler, I just don't see at 27 years old how all of a sudden he just begins getting an extra 5 carries a game and an extra 2 targets a game. It's not going to be happening. And at the same time, if he's already scoring 20 touchdowns in a season, can it really go up from here? I think we almost saw Austin Ekeler's ceiling last year as the running back 3 in fantasy. Now, because he doesn't have some of the other red flags that you're going to see with other running backs on this list, I'll be fine keeping him there at running back 3. I just want to explain why I'm going to have McCaffrey over him, because I think McCaffrey truly does have access to a ceiling that Austin Ekeler just simply can't get to. Now, let's go to our next running back, or running back 4. It's going to be Najee Harris. I will say, Najee Harris can fall from here. I'll get to that in just a second. But with Najee Harris, he had the workload we were looking for last year, playing pretty much 100% of the snaps in Pittsburgh, and he showed that he could stay healthy with that role. He has 18 carries a game, 5.5 targets a game as well. Now, I'm a little bit worried about this with the usage in the receiving game, in particular with Najee Harris. I would not be surprised if this comes down with the transition from Ben Roethlisberger to Trubisky, because with Big Ben, obviously he was a quarterback that simply had no arm strength left whatsoever. He could not push the ball down the field. And also, Ben Roethlisberger has never been a quarterback that's able to escape, able to get out of the pocket. So instead, you get a lot of dump offs for Najee Harris. Now, I don't necessarily think that's going to be the case with Trubisky. Now, I'm not sitting here saying Trubisky is going to be a much better quarterback than Ben Roethlisberger. Of course, I can't say that with a straight face. But what I can say is, based on the last year that we had of Mitch Trubisky in Chicago, really the past 2 seasons we had with Trubisky in Chicago, he did show us the ability to get outside of the pocket and scramble, which we have seen historically with quarterbacks like Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, that is going to lower the overall target frequency that the running back position is going to have in that offense, as it makes sense. If the pocket's collapsing and all of a sudden you're Trubisky, if you see that the edge is crashed and you're able to just take it off to the side and pick up the first down running the football, easily, of course, you're going to be willing to do that, where Ben Roethlisberger simply can't. So he has to panic and dump it down to Najee Harris. We saw a very similar shift, say, from Drew Brees to Taysom Hill as the quarterback of the New Orleans Saints, and how that impacted Alvin Kamara's usage in the receiving game. So I'm a little bit worried that you're going to get the fall off with the targets per game for Najee Harris. Now, if this team's able to address the offensive line this offseason, which still definitely possible that they go out there and make a move in the NFL draft, it would be really nice to possibly see a bump up in efficiency for Najee Harris, as he did only have 10 touchdowns last year through 17 games. But if you're looking at the workload in the amount of snaps and touches he had in this offense, I would imagine that Najee Harris has to score more than this, right? There's no way in hell Najee Harris is going out there scoring 10 touchdowns through 17 games. I mean, coming away with over 300 touches yet again this next year. That's going to go up. But let's go over to our next player. And I'm having a very hard time ranking Javonte Williams because we don't know where Melvin Gordon's going to end up. If you told me today, you know what, Mason? Melvin Gordon's in Houston, I would not hesitate to move Javonte Williams ahead of Najee Harris. And I would think that there would be an argument to be made to have Javonte Williams ahead of Austin Ekeler. Now, I understand this sounds crazy. Trust me, I get it. Let me explain myself. If we are looking at Javonte Williams here, he was only the running back 22 last year on a per game basis. So he was a low-end running back 2 in this Denver Broncos offense. Melvin Gordon, the running back 25 on a per game basis. If y'all remember, I was coming out here, starting in about week 7, week 8, whenever I thought that was about to be the trend where you had the Broncos leaning away from Melvin Gordon towards Javonte Williams. I had Javonte Williams as a buy low running back for pretty much a month straight because I was like, okay, now's the time. They're making the switch because Javonte Williams clearly has shown us that he is one of the most talented young running backs in the NFL with the efficiency he is displaying on a per touch basis, especially compared to Melvin Gordon in that same offense. Yet they never made the transition. And instead they split this backfield 50-50. I will have a quick side note. Javonte Williams was 20 years old when he was drafted, the youngest running back in the NFL draft this past year. I think it's understandable if they wanted to just give him some time to develop. But if we look at the backfield on a whole, remember, we just got done talking about Najee Harris seeing every single touch in his backfield. We know what the ceiling is for those Pittsburgh Steelers running backs with that situation. If we look at that same scenario, if Javonte Williams were to be able to get up to 80% of the snaps in Denver, if he was able to get to 75-80% of the touches on a per game basis, if you add Melvin Gordon, Javonte Williams together with their production this past season, 24.5 carries a game, 5.5 targets a game, this is where it's interesting. 142 total yards a game between the two running backs, 17 touchdowns, 142 total yards for the two running backs. Javonte Williams showed that he can be a capable pass catcher in this offense. Now, of course, if the Denver Broncos offense looked like it was going to be crappy yet again this upcoming season, I would never talk about the possibility of moving Javonte Williams up ahead of Najee Harris, of possibly putting him in the same tier alongside Austin Ekeler. But that's simply not going to be the case this upcoming season. This upcoming season, you have a Russell Wilson coming over to Denver. We have seen before that Russell Wilson's strength is not necessarily going out there and being Tom Brady and throwing the ball in every single play. The strength of Russell Wilson, and if you look at the moves the Denver Broncos are making, it makes a lot of sense that this is their game plan, is to have a run-heavy offense, funnel it through one running back, play good defense, let Russell Wilson be one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the NFL, and that's almost what they're setting up in Denver. Now, I think from a general manager standpoint, it would make a lot of sense for this Denver Broncos team to go out there and sign Melvin Gordon to a one-year deal, which I am not looking forward to, and Javonte Williams will fall probably, 5, 6, maybe even 7 spots in these rankings. Now, if Melvin Gordon does sign somewhere else, fire up Javonte Williams, top 5 running back in fantasy this upcoming season. Right now, over there on Underdog, he's being drafted as the running back 7. So I think people are really just waiting to see what Melvin Gordon currently does. Now let's go to our next running back. I know a lot of people are probably saying, Mason, where's Derrick Henry? You missed Derrick Henry. You missed Derrick Henry, you bum. Yes, I get it. Derrick Henry right now is the 3rd running back off the board in Underdog drafts. And I do not have him ranked in our top 6 RBs. Maybe we'll get to him. We're not going to get to him in this video. Let me explain why I have our guy Joe Mixon ahead of Derrick Henry. Y'all know last year, I got so much hate. I can't describe the amount of hate that I got for saying that Joe Mixon was a better option than Nick Chubb. Joe Mixon was a better option than Ezekiel Elliott. This year, I'm saying Joe Mixon's a better option than Derrick Henry. And if Melvin Gordon resigns in Denver, you better believe Joe Mixon's a better option than Javonte Williams. But here with Joe Mixon, 25 years old, coming off a season where he averaged 18 carries a game, 3 targets a game. Now, the one thing holding me back with Joe Mixon is the lack of involvement as a receiver in the playoffs in particular. I am very worried about this offense using Joe Mixon primarily as a first and second down running back and not maximizing his skill set as a pass catching RB, which we saw him do back at Oklahoma. I still don't know why you don't have that as his role in the NFL. But here, in one of the most unique situations possible, in that Joe Mixon had possibly the worst offensive line in the NFL last year. He had 94 total yards a game. He had 16 touchdowns through 16 games of the regular season. Now, if you're looking at the offensive line, we all know it's been, national news. The Bengals went out there and paid for some big boys. They went out there, they got La'el Collins. They got Ted Karras. They got Alex Kappa. And I am by no means an offensive lineman scout. I am by no means an offensive line guru. Trust me. I wish I was. I wish I could be that for y'all, but I'm simply not. What I can do, however, is go over there and look at the contracts that the Cincinnati Bengals gave these players, indicating the talent level with where they may stack up with other options in the NFL, and also listen to people that are a lot smarter than me. And pretty much every piece of analysis I have heard says this gives a massive bump up to the overall starting quality of the Bengals offensive line, as well as the depth that this unit has as well. Not to mention, we know that they have CJ Uzomah last year. Uzomah, pretty much the Evan Ingram tight end, not really going to be blocking, but he can go out there, catch passes. Instead, they brought in Hayden Hurst. They brought in another more than capable blocking option to add to this offensive line unit. So I am very excited about Joe Mixon this upcoming season. I'm viewing him as Derrick Henry in probably a better offense with some more usage in the receiving game. And he's 25 years old instead of 28. Now, please go to the comment section. Let me know how stupid I am. Subscribe to the channel. Drop a like. Most importantly, go sign up for Underdog Fantasy. Use promo code FLOCK if you have not done so already. Go hop into some drafts. We'll be getting a ton of these going on the live stream. Get access to, our 2022 rankings. Get access to our 2022 Dynasty rankings. Get our Dynasty research book, all with that $10 deposit on Underdog Fantasy. Nothing supports this channel more. Thank you again. Hope you have a great day. Hope we get to see you with the video next time. I don't know when it's going to be.